I want to welcome you back to this study on the mind of Christ. In this portion of this running series, I want to take the mind of Christ compared to the mimic of the mind of Christ. Now, I have other videos out, separate from this one, that talk about this mimic. This devil, this world, this flesh, and the devil, to be personified someday in a human being. Call him the Antichrist. He's the materialistic magician, which I brought out in other videos. He will not be God manifested in flesh, as Jesus was, the Son of God, as the Son of Man manifested in flesh. This mimic is the manifestation of iniquity to a human being, as Jesus was the manifestation of godliness, the mystery of godliness, which was Christ manifested in the flesh. The mystery of iniquity would be this Antichrist, this devil, this demon, Lucifer, manifesting himself in the flesh. So this mimic of the mind of Christ, it's all he can do. Let me get into the notes and we'll explain what I'm talking about here. Many are spending more time on the mimic of the mind of Christ, which I'm not going to do in this study here. Here's an example. Quadrant computers, for example. My God, the information that's coming out about that. It can get you distracted, so you're forever learning but never come to the knowledge of the truth of all that's happening today is a mimicry of all that God is. Many are spending more time on the mimic of the mind of Christ, quantum computer, for example, than they do on the real mind of Christ. That's why our focus is on the real mind of Christ. To which is said that the earth moans and groans, waiting for the manifestations of the sons of God, who have this real mind of Christ in them, and not the mimic. Okay, let me explain what I mean by that. I've heard that the human brain has 1 quadrillion memory impulse capacity. Imagine that. That's just a carnal fallen mind. Now imagine this matter of the mind of Christ. A totally different mind cut off from us by this subconscious carnal mind. Whereas this mind of Christ is said to contain all the wisdom and knowledge of God. Imagine that. With it going on to say that we have this mind in us, that is in our human spirits, laying dormant, waiting to be revealed, hidden as a mystery since the fall of humanity, reflecting on what has been said of the tree of life, and then our being barred from that tree of life, remember? This mind of Christ is connected to this tree of life. Make the connection. It is the same mind that was in the Son of Man, Jesus. The same mind is in you. Imagine that. Though we don't use it independent from the Father any more than Jesus in the mode of the Son of Man never used that mind independent from the Father. Yet here we see many good Christians, preacher teachers, getting into what is happening at an alarming rate, this growth of the age of the quantum computer and AI, artificial intelligence, not knowing that had they come to know this mind of Christ, they would have seen this day of the mimic, and what it was mimicking, that of the mind of Christ, and by reason of time would have had what Scriptures revealed. Greater is he that's in us than he that is in the world. Note the capital H, he, and the lowercase of he. The first is God. The second is what they are doing today, personalizing what they call AI, artificial intelligence. Think of the Scriptures. And he caused the image to speak. This comes out of the book of Revelations 13:15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and live. and caused that many that would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Now you go off on YouTube and you punch that up and you'll get millions of videos of various views perspective of this image. I don't want to get off on that. I want to go on. Bring out what I've been told to share. Do you see this? Notice the lowercase e. This is what has been called the materialistic magician brought out in my other videos. This he is not God, but will be God-like, the mimic. You can see now how the living word of this text in Revelation can be brought to life by Spirit-given words to reveal Spirit-given truths. I've had some of these insights given to me long before what we read of today in science magazines. Of this matter of artificial intelligence and quantum physics. Now, in light of all that has been shared in the 2 series of videos I've been sharing with you, The Mind of Christ in You and The First Begotten, this video will complement all that has been shared and will take it even deeper. That's why I keep warning people. Now, if somebody drops in here and reviews this one video, and they have not listened to these other videos, a lot that be said here won't make no sense, and you go off saying I'm teaching heresy. I'm not. If you see it in light of all these series I put out, The Mind of Christ in You and The First Begotten, a lot of the other series I got, they complement one another. I know people who've been following these videos. They've gotten into the series, and they follow it and make their comments, and we comment back and forth, and they begin to see it. Okay, now we'll go on with some more notes. If you want to know what the devil is doing, you only have to know what the Lord has already done. Hear that again. If you want to know what the devil is doing, you only have to know what the Lord has already done. His finished work. Satan can only mimic what God has done to accomplish any seeming success. If you don't know what God has done, his finished work, Satan will always be a step ahead of you. To beat this, you can't let the left hand know what the right hand has done. Who is the head of any movement? Remember that? Brought that out about the Christ is the head. If you don't hold to the head, you're going to get caught off into the flesh and the world and the devil. Christ, the mind of Christ, which we have, is our head. Don't lose your head. Remember this use of this quote. Loose lips sink ships. Know and don't tell. The video on that. You got to know things. There's things I can't share here. I won't. Now I'll share it. Not on YouTube. I share it through private emails or over the phone or one-to-one confrontations with people that can be trusted with this stuff. It's not some secret. It's a mystery that's there, ready to be revealed. But as Paul told Timothy, commit these things unto those that are trustworthy. In many of my videos, I've been told to stress only those things coming through this mind of Christ in me, and not to get too technical with facts that distract from coming to understand just how much there is in this mind of Christ in us. I don't care how much knowledge there is in these computers. It's interesting facts, but it doesn't help someone with the mind of Christ. I may have been allowed to use some current technology, but was warned to not get into all there is on these terms, right? I got a complaint one time. Well, you ought to bring all that more out. You're talking about AI. Where's the articles that show this fact? I got caught off into that, and the Lord said, stop doing that. I don't want you to do that. There's other guys out there, guys like Thomas Horn, Steve Quayle, Chuck Mester, and many, many others that are getting into all the current news about what's going on in the world of technology. I'm not called to do that. You can go off and research that stuff. Don't send me links on that. I viewed it all. I don't need to hear their links. I know what's going on in this world. Off this narrow road now, sitting in heavenly places with Christ Jesus looking down, I can see the beginning from the end, and it all makes sense. I've known things for years. I never owned a computer back then. I never understood it. But I knew things that now that I'm into this stuff, it makes sense. I've had individuals complain that I should back up that which I am sharing with scientific documentation. Yet without trying to explain to them why I don't do this, I move on, and they go to those heavy intel there is out there on any subject. They'll go follow Tom. No, I'm not objecting to you following Thomas Horn, Steve Quayle, or these other guys that are into all the current news and what's going on in the world today. I mean, that's interesting stuff. Yeah, without trying to explain to them why I don't do this, I move on and they go to those heavy into there is out there on many subject matters, with those listening to them getting lost in the facts. The old saying, they can't see the tree for the forest. The tree is this sense being the tree of life, which I mentioned above. I am called to focus, hear this, I am called in what I'm sharing here, to stay focused on the tree of life and the mind of Christ. Not to get off into all these facts and figures, what's going on in the world, the cares and fears of this world. All the wisdom and knowledge I need is there, and not only in me, but also in all willing to lose just the facts. Know this, sometimes the facts are only confirmation of things that we knew through the mind of Christ already. Sometimes it gives you a vocabulary. You can see this in my few videos on transhumanism. I put a few videos out. That's where somebody complained that I should have put more headline news and scientific journal facts to back it up. I'm not going to do that. Also, in individual videos that bring out this mimic of this new creation that God has already prepared, being mimicked by evil today. This is how I know the mimic, because I know something of the real new creation. So let's stay focused on the true reality, or this unreality will blindside you and catch you off guard. Know that this evil is always trying to undo what God had done. Remember I talked about the undoing? How God has to undo? Well, the devil is trying to undo what God's done. So know that the evil is always trying to undo what God has done to get us out of this trap, to rescue us and reconcile us back to his original intent before Adam and God distracted falling for Lucifer's lie. That we could create some utopian dream world here without God, giving us all the impression that we could become like God. Also know that the Holy Spirit is seeking to undo what evil has done. This matter of mimicking what God had done and allow God to undo what has to be done to us all via our flesh, which could have been a good thing, yet as the fall of humanity becomes an evil thing. You read of this in Genesis chapter 3. Chapter 6, chapter 6, 3. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. We became flesh. We were flesh. Adam and Eve would become one flesh. That was a good sense of the word. But when they fell, flesh got cut off. Let me explain that. Get beyond our traditional ideas of this for a moment and think with the mind of Christ that is in you. Imagine, what if, now that's another series of videos I have. What if Adam had not fallen? But he would have been flesh, yet not fallen flesh. Remember what the term flesh meant. We would have been of one blood, one race, one culture, of one creed, of one gender, capable of expressing male and female in a way we have never experienced in this fallen condition. Sad thing is that we can't. So we see, express only that which we have known, thinking that this is what God had originally intended. At the fall of humanity, we became only flesh. Acts 17:26, and have made one of one blood all nations of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and have determined the times before appointed in the bounds of their habitation. Numbers 16:22, and they fell upon their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh. See, the focus is on spirit. Shall one man sin, and wilt thou brawl with all the congregation? Numbers 27:16. Let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation. Now make the connection with Paul's apostle experience. See, all these, you got to make these connections. If you don't, I said we get distortions. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. I've used this text before. I am crucified with Christ. That's the ego. I is ego in the Greek. Nevertheless, I, ego, live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Now that's a mouthful. And you can go to YouTube and probably get another million explanations of this text. Here this way. I have addressed this in other videos, but here he brings it out a deeper side to Paul's experience, and like what we're talking about with this video. We know from the other videos that we were crucified with Jesus in his body, which saw no corruption, that we were raised with him in his body, using a natural illustration of 37.2 trillion cells as an example. Give more than that. This is how we got our Zoe bodies. Jesus was a life-giving spirit, where Adam was only a life-giving soul with a body dying. See the difference? Moving on. So when Paul in Romans chapter 12 begged us to offer our bodies a living sacrifice, he said in Romans chapter 12, I beg you, brethren, by the aforementioned mercies of God, chapters 1 to 11, having that under your belt, now present your body a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, for this is your reasonable service. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's Romans chapter 12. Begged us to offer our bodies a living sacrifice. Jesus' resurrection gave us this body. Make the connection. Now we needed a new mind. We got this, the mind of Christ. Through awakening our human spirit, where this mind is, not in your carnal soul. It's not in the subconscious mind and the latent powers of the human soul, which comes out in other videos. Heart and the subconscious mind brings this out. In this you see spirit, soul, and body, the total salvation complete, all in what the Son of God, through Jesus the Son of Man, accomplished, which was only a manifestation of an eternal fact of God's finished work before the foundation of the world, manifest in time and space. So moving along here, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Christ in you. And the life which I now live in the flesh. Race, culture, secular, religious creeds, male or female, your job, your position in life, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Here we see where the flesh had become an evil thing, now is restored because the flesh is surrendered to the faith of the Son of God, to God's offer of his love, to the giving of his Son's life as a Son of Man. Remember Paul's warning in Romans 8, if You live after the flesh, you are on your way to dying. Flesh, surrender to the faith of Christ in you, would sustain you and fulfill Paul's expression, putting on the inner man. This inner man is this mind of Christ in you, and this faith is the substance of things hoped for, yet of the things not seen. Got it? Now, all I've said in this video gets beyond and is greater than the mimic that this world is offering. There is no comparison. So this is just a little more added to the study of the mind of Christ and about this mimic. It tries to mimic what God has already done, trying to rob us of that finished work of Christ. So I see this video is 21 minutes long. I think I'll end it on that. That way I don't overload. Some people can't handle 21 minutes. But oh well. God bless you. Understand that. To ponder these things. God bless you.